Is it possible to download 35 years of master-level expertise in just 6 months? Right now, 400,000 master tradesmen are retiring every single year, and they are taking secrets with them that aren't written in any textbook. If you are a young man looking for the ultimate wealth exploit, there is a 5-year window open right now to capture this vanishing knowledge before it's gone forever. Today, I'm going to show you the knowledge capture protocol, the sovereignty OS method for inheriting a master's empire. I need you to understand the scale of what's happening because the numbers alone should terrify anyone who pays attention to how economies actually function. 400,000 skilled tradesmen are leaving the workforce every year, and only 100,000 apprentices are completing their training annually to replace them. That's a 4-to-1 loss ratio. For every apprentice who earns his credentials, 4 experienced tradesmen leave. This isn't a labor shortage. A labor shortage implies you need more of the same thing. This is a knowledge hemorrhage. The industry isn't just losing bodies, it's losing decades of accumulated expertise that took entire careers to build and cannot be replaced by hiring more warm bodies off the street. Imagine a company where 4 senior engineers retire every year and only 1 junior engineer is hired. Within 5 years, the institutional knowledge base has collapsed. The junior engineers can read the documentation, if documentation exists, but they don't know why certain decisions were made, which systems are fragile, or what happens when edge cases arise that nobody wrote a procedure for. That's what's happening to the American trades infrastructure right now. Except it's not one company, it's the entire economy. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, welding, pipe fitting, sheet metal. Every skilled trade in the country is experiencing the same demographic cliff at the same time, driven by the same root cause. An entire generation was told to go to college instead of learning a trade, and now the men who kept the physical world running are aging out with nobody trained to take their place. This is where sovereign decisiveness applies. The principle that a sovereign man doesn't wait for failing institutions to fix problems that affect his life. The government programs are underfunded and slow. The union apprenticeship programs are excellent, the IBEW, the UA, the sheet metal workers, but they can't scale fast enough to close a 4-to-1 gap. The community colleges are teaching trade basics, but they're staffed by instructors, not by active masters with 35 years of field knowledge. The system is failing. Not because the people in it are incompetent, but because the problem is structural, and structural problems don't respond to incremental solutions. If you want to capture the knowledge that's walking out the door right now, you have to go get it yourself. If the government isn't going to solve the knowledge cliff for you, the unions can't scale fast enough, the schools don't have the right teachers. That's not a criticism of the institutions, it's a recognition of reality. And sovereign men deal in reality, not in what should be happening. Now let me explain why the knowledge cliff is so much worse than a simple labor shortage, because this distinction is the key to everything I'm going to tell you today. There's a difference between code knowledge and field knowledge, and that difference is the entire crisis. Code knowledge is what you learn in school. The National Electrical Code, the Uniform Plumbing Code, the mechanical codes, it's the official standard. The minimum requirement for passing an inspection and getting a license. Code knowledge is the floor, not the ceiling. It tells you what's legal. It doesn't tell you what works. Field knowledge is what a master tradesman accumulates over 20, 25, 35 years of doing the actual work. It's knowing that the plumbing code says you can run a 2-inch drain at a 1/4 inch per foot pitch, but in a slab on grade with expansive clay soil, you'd better run it at 1/8 of an inch because the slab is going to shift, and that extra pitch gives you settlement tolerance. It's knowing which supply houses actually stock what they say they stock, and which ones will leave you waiting on a truck for 3 days. It's knowing that the code allows a certain wire gauge for a 30 amp circuit, but in a long commercial run with voltage drop across 200 feet, you'd better upsize or you'll be back in 6 months chasing a callback. None of this is in a textbook. None of it is on Google. This is knowledge that lives exclusively in the heads of men who built it through decades of trial, error, callbacks, and hard-won experience. And when those men retire, that knowledge retires with them. And this is what I call data loss at the civilizational level. A company that loses its critical data without a backup is destroyed. The American trades are experiencing a data loss event right now, and there is no backup. The backup was supposed to be apprenticeship, the master teaching the apprentice, transferring the field knowledge through direct mentorship over years of working side by side. But when the apprenticeship pipeline shrank to 1/4 of what's needed, the transfer mechanism broke. Let me make this concrete. I talked to a master electrician in his early 60s who's been wiring commercial buildings in the Southeast for 37 years. He said, "I can walk into a building I've never been in before and tell you within 15 minutes where the problems are going to show up in 10 years. He knows that in a tilt-wall commercial building in a region with high humidity, condensation will collect at specific points in the electrical conduit runs, and if you don't slope the conduit properly and install drains at the low points, you'll have water sitting on wire within 5 years. That's not in the code. But the master knows the code minimum will fail in that specific condition because he's seen it fail dozens of times. When he retires next year, that knowledge walks out with him. The apprentice who replaces him will wire the building to code, it will pass inspection, and in 5 years there will be water in the conduit because the man who knew is gone. A master welder who knows that the procedure spec says to preheat to 300 degrees, but on this particular grade of chromoly in ambient temperatures below 40, you'd better go to 350 or you'll get hydrogen cracking in the heat affected zone. He learned that on a pipeline job in North Dakota in 1997 when 3 of his welds cracked overnight and he spent 2 weeks figuring out why. That failure cost him sleep, reputation, and money, and it gave him knowledge that no welding school in the country teaches because the procedure spec doesn't account for it. A master HVAC technician who can diagnose a compressor issue by the sound it makes before any gauge reading confirms it. He's heard 10,000 compressors in his career. He knows the difference between a valve rattle, a bearing whine, and a liquid slugging knock, and he knows which one means replace this month versus replace today before it grenades and takes the condenser with it. He can hear a refrigerant charge that's 6 ounces low on a 5-ton system. No instrument gave him that. 30 years of listening gave him that. A master plumber who knows which fittings from which manufacturers fail under thermal cycling in hot water recirculation systems, not because he read a product recall notice, but because he installed those fittings in 200 buildings over 15 years and watched them fail in a specific pattern that the manufacturer still hasn't acknowledged. He knows the failure happens at the crimp ring, not at the fitting body, and he knows it happens faster in buildings with solar hot water preheat because the temperature swings are wider. That's 15 years of pattern recognition compressed into a 3-second decision at the fitting rack in the supply house. A master pipe fitter who's memorized the expansion rates of copper, steel, and PVC across 60-degree temperature swings and can route a system through a building that won't buckle, crack, or pull apart at the hangars when the seasons change. He doesn't calculate this on paper every time. He sees it the way a chess grandmaster sees the board 6 moves ahead, not because he's computing, but because he's played the game so many times that the patterns are immediate. Each one of these men is a library, a living archive of field-tested, failure-proven, real-world knowledge that took 35 years to compile. And we are burning 400,000 of those libraries every single year while replacing them with 100,000 apprentices who have read the table of contents. That's the crisis. But here's the thing about a crisis. It's also an opportunity. This is where I apply structural stability from my book, Iron Logic. Structural stability defines real wealth as resilience. And the ultimate form of resilience is possessing knowledge that other people need and cannot get anywhere else. If you capture the field knowledge of a retiring master, if you apprentice under him, absorb his diagnostic instincts, learn his vendor relationships, document his failure patterns, you don't just have a trade skill. You have a competitive moat that cannot be replicated by anyone who didn't sit next to that master and learn from him directly. And the economics are extraordinary. The supply of master-level field knowledge is in freefall. The demand, driven by the data center boom, the infrastructure build-out, the aging building stock, is at an all-time high. These curves are diverging at an accelerating rate. The men who possess master-level field knowledge in the next 5 to 10 years will command pricing power that hasn't existed in the trade since the post-war construction boom of the 1950s. When a building owner has a complex system failure and there are only 3 people in the metropolitan area who can diagnose it correctly, those 3 people set the rate. That's what a structural shortage of expertise looks like from the inside. Now, let me give you the protocol. The knowledge capture protocol. 5 steps for capturing a retiring master's expertise before the window closes. Step 1. Identify the masters in your area who are within 5 years of retirement. Talk to the local union halls. Talk to the supply houses. The guys behind the counter know every contractor in the region and who's winding down. Talk to the inspection offices. Ask directly, who are the best in this trade and who's about to retire? Step 2. Offer value in exchange for access. A retiring master has no obligation to teach you anything. He's done. He's earned his retirement. You need to approach him with respect for his craft and a genuine desire to learn, not just to earn. Show up early, stay late, do the cleanup work without being asked, carry the tools, pull the materials. Demonstrate through action that you take the craft seriously, because a master tradesman can smell a pretender from 50 feet away. He's had 40 years of guys who wanted the paycheck, but not the discipline. If you're different, if you're genuinely hungry for the knowledge, he'll see it. And many of these men are frustrated that nobody wants what they know. They watch their sons go to college. They watch the apprenticeship applications drop year after year. If you show up with genuine intent and a work ethic to match, many of them will teach you. The man who spent his life mastering something wants to know it won't die with him. That's legacy, and you're offering to be the vessel for it. Step 3. Document everything. This is the brevity protocol from my book, Vital Logic. When a master shows you something that isn't in the code, write it down. Build your own field manual, organized by situation, not by theory. When you encounter X condition in Y building type, do Z. These situation response pairs are the core of field knowledge, and they're what disappears when a master retires without a successor. Your job isn't just to learn, it's to archive what he knows so it survives him. Step 4. Apply the knowledge immediately on your own jobs. Field knowledge is perishable if it isn't used. The first time you catch a problem that a less experienced tradesman would have missed, the knowledge becomes yours. It's no longer something you were told, it's something you know. Step 5. Build your reputation on the knowledge differential. Don't compete on price. Compete on expertise. The contractor who can tell a client, I'm going to install this system in a way that prevents the 3 most common failure modes for this building type in this climate, is worth more than the contractor who says, I'll do it to code. Code is the minimum. Knowledge is the advantage. Here's your timeline. The bulk of the baby boomer tradesmen are between 58 and 67 years old right now. The peak retirement wave is happening between 2024 and 2030. That's a 6-year window. After 2030, the masters will be largely gone. The knowledge they carry will have left the workforce permanently. There is no second chance at this. There is no backup copy. When the last master electrician who remembers how the original wiring was run in a 1965 commercial building retires, that knowledge is extinct. You have 5 years, maybe 6. The masters are still here. They're still working. They're still reachable. But every month that passes, more of them walk out the door for the last time. Every month the archive shrinks. And the knowledge that could have been your competitive moat, your pricing power for the next 30 years, is lost. Not misplaced, not temporarily unavailable, lost permanently. This isn't a motivational speech. This is a structural analysis with a countdown attached. The 4-to-1 ratio is real. The knowledge cliff is real. The 5-year window is real. And the men who act within that window will inherit a position of economic strength that the men who wait will never be able to build on their own because the source material will be gone. Find a master. Offer to apprentice. Document everything. Build the archive. Inherit the empire. The clock is running. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It keeps the motor running. And if you'd like to learn more, check out my books on Amazon or click the links below.